This is Everybody Pulls the Tarp with your host, Andrew Moses. Each week, Andrew talks with Olympians, pro athletes, TV stars, Grammy winners, best-selling authors, CEOs, and other high performers to uncover their success secrets.
My guest is Washington Commanders running back Austin Ekeler.
Every day we write a page of our life. The best thing is you have the pen in your hand.
Three-time Olympic gold medalist Tessa Virtue. Welcome back to Everybody Pulls the Tarp.
Thanks for thinking of me, and I'm a big fan of the podcast and of yours. So anytime you text or call, I'm here.
Mike Mills from REM.
The key to that was realizing at some point fairly early on that this was probably our life's work.
Every conversation is jam-packed with inspiration and actionable ideas.
My guest is 2023 WNBA Coach of the Year, Stephanie White.
The hardest thing for a coach is trying to prioritize how much time you put in one area or another.
Former MLB player, coach, and manager Clint Hurdle.
That is the best title of any podcast out there in America, and the content matches up to it. Andrew, you do a fantastic job. I'm a big fan. Keep up the great work.
World-renowned organizing expert Shira Gill.
You can improve your life simply by removing things.
Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the techniques, processes, and mindsets powering the world's most successful people.
Let's go. Hi, friends, and welcome back to Everybody Pulls the Tarp. This week, my guest is Sarah McCoy. Sarah is a New York Times, USA Today, and international best-selling author. Her novels include The Mapmaker's Children, The Baker's Daughter, The Time It Snowed in Puerto Rico, and many more. Her latest book, Whatever Happened to Lori Lovely, was released in September, and it's a spellbinding novel based on a true story of a beautiful young movie star of Hollywood's golden age, giving up her bright career to become a nun. Sarah is the daughter of an elementary school teacher and an Army officer. She describes her childhood as a, quote, wandering life, because she moved every year or two until she was 13 years old. Sarah calls her interest in storytelling and creative writing a, quote, lifelong love affair, and says that from the time she could write her ABCs, she was creating little books for her family and friends. While in college, Sarah double majored in journalism and business with a minor in theater arts. After college, she took a job as a PR coordinator at a chemical company. She wrote her own fiction in the evening and then decided to enroll in a Master of Fine Arts program to further hone her craft. And it was during her time in that program that she wrote her first novel. The rest is history. In our conversation, we explore Sarah's journey and many of the moments and experiences that have shaped her both personally and professionally. Sarah shared powerful ideas on creativity, learning from history, why success is a journey with many incremental steps along the way, and so much more. Sarah also shared an incredible story of her now decade-plus long pen-pal relationship with former actress Dolores Hart, and the profound impact that their correspondence over the years has had on both of their lives. My friends, you've got to hear this particular story and everything that Sarah shared in our conversation, because it is all an important reminder of what is possible through connection, following our curiosities, and lifting others up along the way. I hope you take away as much from this conversation with Sarah as I have. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Sarah McCoy. Welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here to talk to you and all your listeners.
Sarah, where I want to begin, I want to go way back to your childhood. You have called your childhood a quote-unquote wandering life because you moved every year until you were 13 years old. I am curious, aside from all the travels and packing and unpacking, what you remember most about your childhood?
Gracious, you did your homework. I am super impressed right now. I kind of took a back. I was like, my childhood, where are we going here? Oh, I was a military kid. I mean, that in itself is a whole realm of something. So I grew up behind fences, behind barbed wire, behind guards. And that was part of my childhood. I lived in Germany. Yes, I wandered. And I feel like when you grow up I was an Army brat. So that was the branch of the military that my father was in. And I think when you grow up in that context, you are forced to find story and investigate the history of each new place every 2 years, every 3 years, and you're forced to reinvent yourself. You're forced to find your own narrative, discover the narratives of the people that are moving in next door to you because they're military kids too. And I feel like all of that really influenced me as a storyteller because I was constantly collecting stories and I was constantly seeking stories to know where you came from, and let me tell you where I came from and what new story are we going to make in this new place that we're here only for a couple of years and then we're moving on. So I think that when it comes to my childhood was incredibly instrumental.
Sarah, I am curious, like, what was the first time that you can remember telling or sharing a story with someone and feeling like, hey, like I was able to communicate something there that was pretty powerful and maybe captivated someone's attention? Like, do you remember that first moment?
These are really good questions because I've never thought of them before. And now you're making me remember things that I hadn't. So yes, oddly, Andrew, right? When you said that, like a spark came to my mind of when I was in kindergarten. I was in kindergarten and we were stationed at Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. And I remember I went to school one day and nothing happened. It was the most basic day. And I remember feeling so bored at school and it was just so boring. And so I started to dream in the classroom of just storytelling in my own head. And then I got home and my mom said, "How was your day?" And I said, "Oh, it was crazy, Mom. You will never believe what happened. A mouse got into our classroom and it raced across the room. And we all got up from our desks and we chased it and we ran around in circles chasing it until the teacher fell. And then we got it and then we captured it and we took it outside and we let it go. It was the most amazing day." And then she said, "That didn't happen, Sarah." And I said, and she said, "Be careful what you make up and you distinguish as a lie and a story because there is a big difference." And I said, "I made that up." And she said, "It's good to make up stories. You can make up stories, but do not lie." And so she said, "So that didn't happen, but you dreamed it did." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "That's a wonderful story, but make sure you know." And so I feel like that actually was a teaching point for me in that it's okay to dream and it's okay to have these adventures in your head and you can embrace them. And there's nothing shameful about that, but to distinguish that between the story and the truth. So it's interesting you brought that up.
I'm curious, Sarah. Now, it's just an incredible story. Like, and I could just see you now, like telling it with so much zest and enthusiasm. I can only imagine what it was like when you shared it with your mom way back when. Now, just sticking with your mom for a moment here, I believe she was a elementary school teacher.
You're right.
And I am curious, like, I'm always fascinated to ask kids of teachers, like, what was your relationship with school? Like, were you someone who loved school, enthusiastic about school?
I was, but I was, this is a good question. Yes. And I'm so impressed you know about my mom. She was a career elementary school teacher and then she became a principal. And she got her PhD in childhood development and was very much interested. And she wrote her thesis on the idea of play being part of the mental and psychological development of children into adults and how it's so important and critical. And so I loved school, but I was also type A, which means that I loved school when I was getting the A+++, star. When I was failing at something, failing to get that perfectionist A++, star, then it was difficult for me. So, for example, I loved English. It was super easy. I just, I sat down at a desk, I wrote things, I got the A plus plus plus. Fantastic. I was not good at math. I was not good at math. I had to go to after school tutoring with my math teacher. I remember her sitting me down and saying, if you do this whole page of the mathematic equations, I will give you one of those Smarties. Do you remember they were wrapped?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then that's your treat if you do it. And I remember wanting that Smartie so badly, but not wanting to do those math things because I hated it. I hated math so much. So because I wasn't good at it, I found it so vapid and boring and uncreative. And there was only one right answer, but what did that even matter? Right? I was like, what does it even matter if I get the right answer or not? Like, I just had no connection to math. And so it depended. I liked school, but it challenged me for sure.
So when was the first time that you even thought to yourself or someone said to you that you could write for a living? When was that moment?
For a living or just in general? Because my mother was the one who in general said, I think you have the talents and the gifts in that direction. Probably based on the fact that I was bringing home C's in math. I was like, I don't like this. I mean, and honestly, going back to math real fast, I wouldn't even answer. I would do the first 5 equations and I would just leave the rest blank. I was like, I'm done. I'm not even putting any effort in this. So I think my mom knew then, and I would write these little books. I would take a piece of notebook paper and I would fold it in half and I would make a cover and I would color it. And then I would write little things inside and I would give them to my mom at age 5, 6, 7. And I would say, here's my book for today. Here's my book for today. And she was then said, I think you're going to do something in writing. And so she kind of, I believe in a self-fulfilling prophecy. I really do believe in that theory, that psychology of it, that if you tell someone enough that they're going to be something, whether that's good or bad, righteous or evil, they're going to go in that direction because that's what you've planted, the seed you've planted in them. So my mom definitely encouraged that. And then when did I think it would be something as a career? I went to school, my undergrad, for journalism, and I double majored in journalism and business with a minor in theater arts because I was a nerdy theater kid, but I could not act, Andrew. I could not act to save my life. What you see is what you get with me, no matter where I am. And so I would get on stage and I would say lines as Sarah, even if I was supposed to be I don't even know who, someone else, And so I did script writing and stage writing and playwriting, and I loved all that. So that was my minor degree. So I got out of school thinking that I would be a journalist, thinking that I would either be an on-camera journalist or write copy or newspaper or something. But I loved digging up stories. I loved doing stories.
So when did things change? When was it, I'm no longer going to pursue this path as a traditional journalist. I'm going to go a different path. Was it after college when you took the job as a PR coordinator at a chemical company because it was kind of the practical thing to do, because writing novels and maybe journalism didn't seem at that point like a way to make money and pay the bills? Was that the inflection point? Talk about that for a moment.
You're incredible. Yes, that was exactly it. First off, I double majored because my mom and dad said, if you just do journalism, you are not going to make enough money to live. So you need a business degree. And so I said, okay. And they say, but yeah, if you are a journalism with a theater arts minor, you are not going to make any money and you won't be able to live. So I got out and I took the job at a chemical company, Albemarle Chemicals in Richmond, Virginia. And I wrote all their copy and annual reports and all that. And I was so sad. I was so dark and sad during that period of my life because I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. And so while I was there, in my free time, I would come home and I would sit in my apartment and I wrote this novel. I wrote a novel and it was junk. I mean, complete junk, but I loved it. I felt alive. I felt I could breathe. I felt I didn't even care if it was bad because it just made me feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I submitted that and I submitted a play I wrote to a MFA program and then went to graduate, got accepted as a playwright first. And so I entered as a playwright into a 3-year in-residency MFA program. I taught writing during the day. And then, because I was there on loans for graduate school, taught writing during the day to pay for my tuition, and then went to graduate courses at night. And then midway through my program, I switched from playwriting to fiction. And I wrote as my thesis, my first novel, The Time It Snowed in Puerto Rico. And so that's how that evolved. And then I got out with a manuscript and got an agent and then got a 2-book deal with Random House.
Wow. What an incredible series of events, Sarah. I'm curious, just to backpedal a little bit, like if you think about that, like corporate communications job that you got out of college initially, and even those experiences like teaching writing while you were putting yourself through graduate school, were there things that you learned through those experiences that even though you weren't maybe doing what your calling was at that point, you really took like a lesson that maybe has influenced you heavily in the work that you do today as a novelist? Talk about that for a moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things looking back to that I see is that, well, first off, at the time, you have to have tenacity and you have to take baby steps. I think too often now, especially younger generations, they want a quick fix. They want to go from here to here. They want to go from, I just started an Instagram account and now I've got 2 million followers. Fast. They want it. And that's just not the way that life usually happens for everyone. It's incremental steps, and you have to embrace that journey and realize it's not about the goal. It's about who you are developing into with each incremental step, each time you do something else. So yes, it took time. I didn't just become an author. There are a lot of, I hate to say it, but there are a lot of authors out there who have never taken any courses, have never done anything. They just sit down, they write a book, and then it gets picked up and it's a New York Times bestseller and it's about dragons and dragon blood and you know what I mean? And they're just in this, suddenly they're in this realm of uber celebrity. And other writers, is my point, other artists out there, young people are watching saying that's how you do it. And I would love to tell them, no, take heart. If you are doing the tiniest steps and you feel like you're just barely moving ahead at a slow pace, that is okay. That is actually brilliant for you. That is developing muscles that will last you for the longevity of your career. It's like that tortoise and the hare, old nursery rhyme story, right? Little by little, little by little. That is good enough. That's more than good enough. That's actually better than skyrocketing to something. And that actually ties to the book that I wrote, Whatever Happened to Lori Lovely. And that's a theme in this, is that Lori Lovely, is 18. She gets catapulted to all her dreams as an actress by being cast as Juliet in the world famous blockbuster Romeo and Juliet, the musical. She gets everything she wants at a young age, and she realizes, well, now what? Now what do I do? What's my purpose now that I've achieved everything that the world tells me makes me worthy and famous and a celebrity and wanted and adored? But now what? Now is my life over? Now that I've done everything that the world says I should have done, what do I do next? And that's when she has to go through a series. I don't want to give anything away, but she goes through a series of events that then makes her say, okay, all the things, all the trappings, all the riches that we're told that we should want and that we should aim to claim in our lives in order to be called successful, those things don't last. Those things are temporary. And what really matters is the internal, what's inside and the development of my soul and my character. And so that's something that I definitely, you asking that question makes me suddenly, right now in this moment, realize that that is a pattern. Lori Lovely's pattern is in my own life, that it was incremental and it was about deep down.
All right, everyone. We'll get back to the conversation momentarily. But first, I want to tell you about my free weekly email newsletter, Tarp Pullers. Each week, I share an uplifting and inspirational tarp pulling story that is sure to brighten your day. And I also highlight some of the most powerful ideas I've learned on my journey talking to 200 and counting of the world's top performers. The newsletter is short, concise, and a reader recently told me this. She said it makes her day every time it hits her inbox. Go to everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter to sign up today. I'm curious, the arrival fallacy is a real thing. I mean, this is something that is real. And it's this idea that when we achieve X or when we get to Y or when we accomplish this goal, that we're going to feel like we've accomplished everything and we're going to feel this immense happiness and gratitude and satisfaction. And the reality is that's why it's the arrival fallacy, because we kind of never really arrive, especially so many of the high achievers that I've talked to over the last few years, Olympians, Grammy winners, TV personalities, professional athletes, some of the world's greatest coaches, best-selling authors like yourself. It's like there's this struggle I find between making sure you celebrate your accomplishments and those like micro steps along the way while also staying ambitious towards maybe the next goal. I'm curious, in your life, in your work, I mean, you mentioned that first book deal, I believe it was Random House, you mentioned was a 2-book deal. I know a lot of times authors, based on the cycle of writing and then publishing and promoting, you're almost like working on the next book before you even know the result, the commercial result of the one you just worked on. How did you manage that? Like, I guess, what have you learned about yourself in that regard? And maybe through exploring the idea in this most recent book, like how has it kind of changed your own thinking and how you're going to look at your work and how you think about things?
Right. Well, first off, major kudos. You don't know how happy it makes me that you just threw out the arrival fallacy, because that is something that is absolutely exactly, but very few people, funny enough, know what that is. It's a psychology term that I feel like everyone needs to know more about, because it's so true about making boxes for ourselves of happiness, checking them off, and then we're still not happy. So what then? So yes, that is a fallacy, that we're going to find happiness by having all the things that we think that we need to be happy. And going back to your question about this book and writing, putting it out in the world and then already starting something new, I think that's part of the essence of having faith that no matter what happens with this book, it does not define me. No matter what happens with, and I'll broaden that, no matter what happens with the album, the music album that someone puts out, no matter what happens with the art or the dance or the film that someone makes as an actor, no matter what happens with that with the public, it does not define that person. It does not define their worth. It does not define their spirit. It does not define their value in the universe. And so that's something that we say, and it sounds so good. And it's like, oh yeah, I believe that. But then when you're in the moment and you're feeling like you're getting burned because no one's giving you the attention you think you wanted from that, whatever it is you've put out, then you start to feel like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not, oh. And writing, at least for me, jumping into that next project is the most important way to make sure that my mind, body, and soul are focused on not the past, but on the future and on my worth as just an artist and being a conduit for some greater purpose and greater message that I am just putting out in the world. And if I just keep being that conduit, then it's not focused on me. It's focused on the storytelling and having faith in what's next. And that's the purpose.
Sarah, I am curious, like, what does it look like when you're coming up with the next big idea that you're going to pursue, the next project that you're going to sink everything you have into? Like, where do your ideas come from? How do you decide that you've wrestled with an idea enough that this is something that you're going to write a novel about?
When I get an idea, I write it down I have a moleskin journal actually this one is different. I got a little, but it's a moleskin inside of a journal. Yes, look, mine's inside here, so it's kind of packaged, but it is a moleskin in here.
Mine's a pocket size. I always keep it in my back pocket.
Yeah, see, if you can see, I've got all sorts of like things inside here. I know your podcast listeners can't see it, but I've got like a bookmark my mom painted and a postcard one of my author friends sent me, and just like little bits of like stuff from the places I've traveled. And I write down the idea in here and I let it sit. It's like putting it in an incubator and I let it sit. And if I come back to it, and by writing it down, I mean like 1 page at most of just thoughts about it. I don't go on and on. I don't write a whole moleskin about it. And I let it sit. And if I come back to it in a week or two, then I know, this is interesting. If I come back to it in a month, then I'm like, okay, it could stay in there. Some ideas have stayed in there for years. And I continue to just think on them. And if they start to blossom into something that really provokes thought for me and provokes questions and makes me probe for answers, then I know that there could be a narrative structure there. So for this book, Whatever Happened to Lori Lovely, started that's the thing. It didn't start as a book, Andrew. I didn't think it was a book. In 2016, I sat down and I watched the film Where the Boys Are. I don't know if you may not have seen that, but I'd never seen it before. And it was on Turner Classic Movie Channel. And on screen came this actress, Dolores Hart. And she was blonde and blue-eyed. And she plays this character named Merritt, who is modern and a feminist and forward and sexually just very advanced. And she's a woman of the 1960s. And I couldn't take my eyes off her. I thought she was fantastic. And I watched the whole film and I loved it. It's such a great film. I couldn't believe I'd never seen it before. And at the end, the host came on, as they do on Turner Classic Movie Channel. And they always give little tidbits and historical facts, which is one of my favorite parts. And he said, Dolores Hart stars in this. She was Elvis's first on-screen kiss. And there were rumors, maybe not true, maybe true, that she had a romantic thing off screen with him. Soon after making this, at the tender age of 22, she left Hollywood altogether and joined a Benedictine abbey in Connecticut and has remained there, never left ever since. And I just spiraled. How did that character and this woman go from that to that? And at 20, in my 20s, I didn't even know, I was doing crazy. I have no idea what I was thinking at 20, and she has been there ever since. So I started Googling her, not thinking it was a book. Again, Andrew, I just was fascinated by her, wanted to know more, couldn't get her off my mind. And then it went on for like 2 weeks because I'm OCD clearly, and I couldn't stop thinking about her. And to be honest, it's my mama. Girls go back, it's like a psychology thing. It all goes back to your mama. My mom, growing up, I was always type A. I told you that earlier, and a perfectionist and a little bit OCD about things where I just couldn't get my mind off of something once I got it on. And that's many creatives. Many creatives are that way. I'm not, abnormal in that way, I think. And so she used to say, if you have someone on your mind and it's keeping you up at night and you have insomnia, because I suffered from insomnia my whole life, she said, stop, pray for them. pray for that person, and then let it go. And it's almost like you're releasing that thought and that person into the sky, into heaven, and then you can go to sleep. And it always worked. Like it always helped me do that. So I had a similar experience with Dolores Hart. I couldn't stop thinking about her. I was waking up in the middle of the night and like, why did she do this? Why did she join an Abbey? What? And I needed to sleep. And so I wrote her a fan letter. I sat down and wrote her a fan letter. And because part of me thought too, in my thinkings, if I left the world tomorrow, either by my choice, left the public, or by the universe's choice, I would hope that my art would continue to influence generations to come, that women and men in decades away would say, oh my gosh, I read this book by Sarah McCoy and it's still, there's power there. Wow, thank you. And so that's what I wrote her. I said, it is 2016 and you made this film in 1960 and I am deeply moved by it. And I am deeply moved by the character you played. And thank you. Thank you for your art. And I know you haven't been in the public in decades, but I want to let you know you're not forgotten. And I see you. And I thank you for everything. And I mailed it off to the blanketed address for the Abbey that I found online in a town called Bethlehem. I kid you not. Right? It sounds like I can't make this up. Like if I put, and the nun lived in a cloistered abbey in a town called Bethlehem, my editor would be like, that is crazy. No one will believe that. Don't put that in. But this is true, people. So I sent it off to Bethlehem and didn't expect anything because it was like Dear Santa at the North Pole, right? And so I went out to my mailbox one day and she wrote me back. She wrote me back and she said, thank you for writing me, Sarah. I haven't heard from fans in years and it meant so much. And then she said, please write me and tell me what I can pray for you.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, I mean, who wouldn't take up that? A nun is going to pray for me. I am right there. There's a direct line there. I'm not Catholic either. So I was like, oh, well, if she's offering, let's do this. And so we started a deeply moving relationship, pen pal relationship that has now been over a decade of writing letters to each other and sharing our lives and sharing our journeys and our struggles. And again, our inner parts, not the outside, but inside us. And it wasn't until 3 years ago that I thought maybe the world needs to hear this story of choosing something different, something counterculture to the 1960s counterculture, right? Something counterculture to our counterculture, even right now. And at the time, I had just moved here to North Carolina, and I was introduced to Ava Gardner. She's from here. Ava Gardner's from farming community here, and she was discovered when her photograph was used to sell photography sessions in the window of a photography shop. And that's all part of the book too. Went into Lori Lovely's character. And I also read the memoir by Olivia Hussey, who was Juliet in the 1968 Romeo and Juliet. I don't know if you've seen that film. It's directed by Zeffirelli, and it is chef's kiss, one of the most spectacular films of the 1960s. And it was a worldwide box office hit for, I think, ticket sales were sold out at every theater across the nation and the globe for 3 years straight. Like, we can't even compute that now. It's like the Titanic of their time from the 90s. So I read her memoir, and in it, she said something that I found was a similar pattern with Dolores and with Ava, is that at a very young age, she filmed that movie at 16. And by 17, she was the it girl. She had everything that the world said that you should want in order for your life to be fulfilling and in order to be worthy. And she was the most beloved. Women wanted to be her. Men wanted to be with her. She was the very top. And she asked, what now? Where do I go? And I'm still not happy. Why do I feel empty? Why do I feel lost? Why do I feel like what? I have everything. So what's wrong with me? Why? And she went inward. So Mother Dolores had a similar moment where she was the it girl of Hollywood at the time. Everyone was saying, you're the next Grace Kelly. Elvis, hello, you're it. And she felt suffocated. She felt like, oh God, and I don't feel right about this. And so she went to the church, Mother Dolores. Olivia Hussey, at 18, 19, she started looking for other realms. And so she went and followed a guru, kind of like Liz Gilbert and Eat, Pray, Love. She followed a guru and she incorporated that into her practice. And then Ava Gardner went looking for it in relationships, in love. She looked for it in men. She looked for it in women. She looked for it. Someone just loved me for me and my soul, and not for the Ava who is growing old and wrinkled and not the person she used to be. She couldn't find it, and she turned to alcohol. She became an alcoholic. And so again, I saw this pattern of, like you said, the arrival fallacy demonstrated in these three actresses. But more than that, Andrew, demonstrated continually in my generation, in the younger generation. It's continuing on. And so I feel like historical fiction is the one way in which young people can pick up a book, read a story, and not feel that they are being castigated, not feel like it's a didactic, you're doing something wrong and you should not do that, because it's about the inside. Like, it's a way for them to read about a character and there be a buffer to say, wow, I'm living vicariously through this character, and yet I can see these lessons and these discoveries in my own life and apply them so I don't make the same mistakes. And I love historical fiction for that.
Me as well. And I'm always quick to remind people that you don't just learn the lessons in nonfiction, that there are so many lessons, so many powerful ideas that impact our lives in profound ways that come from reading and consuming fictional work. I'm just almost speechless, Sarah, about that story that you just told. I mean, it's the idea of writing that fan mail letter and it meaning so much to her, and it's sparking this decade-long pen pal relationship that the two of you have built, and this incredible work that you've now put into the world that's based on her life and how it inspired you, to me is just such a powerful reminder to me, to everybody listening, that if I take away nothing else from this conversation, Sarah, which I'm going to take away a ton, let's be honest, I am taking away a ton from everything that you're sharing. But I think one of the things that I will never forget from this conversation is the importance of telling somebody else how much they matter to you, how they impacted you. I mean, when I think about how much that meant to her, and now in turn, what it's meant to you, how fulfilling it has been for both of you, and how other lives, everybody who reads this work and hears about your work is going to be affected by it in a positive way, and maybe make a decision that they wouldn't have made, or pour into somebody that they wouldn't have poured into. Yes. I mean, those are ripple effects that are just impossible to measure.
I love that. And one of the mottos that I've just come to learn through this journey too, and maybe it's the older I get, I see, is that there are so many reasons to restrain things that you think, things that you say, things that you even might believe. There are many reasons that you might hold back on those. But one thing you should never hold back on, because it only brings goodness into the world, is your praise and your compliment and your gratitude to other people. Never be stingy with your gratitude to other people, because nothing but good comes from that. So that's something that I've learned, just to continually put out gratitudes. And I receive back so many blessings from putting out blessing. I feel like it's like a strange, beautiful alchemy that just regenerates over and over and over again. And so Mother Dolores taught me that by doing and by example and by living that.
I tell people all the time that this idea of being a net giver, waking up every single day thinking more about what you're going to do for others as opposed to what others are going to do for you, can be incredibly rewarding for you as well. I always tell people, I say, when you put good out into the universe, enough good comes back to fill your bucket too. And that's why I am so passionate about this idea of living what I call the everybody pulls the tarp mindset, where we're working together, we're doing the nitty gritty things, we're lifting each other up. It can be self-serving too. And think about how much that act of kindness, that act of praise, like you said just moments ago, never being stingy with gratitude for others. Think about how much it's given to you. I'm just so struck by that in our conversation here, Sarah.
And when you asked me to do this, I looked up what you were based on and I thought, this guy gets me. Like, I wouldn't do just any podcast with someone who just, let's just talk about whatever. Like, you and I share that fundamental purpose. That's what it is, Andrew. It's a fundamental purpose and a commitment to putting good out in the universe. And I think that's something that if we perpetuate, again, it will just multiply. And that's what I do. That's my goal with all of my historical fiction novels, is to in some way illuminate some area through history that people can learn from, both the facts, but also the emotional education and to give them hope that by doing good, even if you don't see it immediately, there will be benefits. There will be benefits. Just be patient with them. Like we talked about earlier, those incremental steps in your own, not just in your career, not just in your work, not just in your purpose, but in your own climb towards legacy.
Sarah, I am so glad that our paths crossed. I am so grateful for this conversation. I hope that this is just the first of many conversations that you and I get to have. I'm so inspired by your work and the way you think. And there is no question in my mind that you are a certified tarp puller. You live the everybody pulls a tarp mindset in everything that you do, and you inspire others to do that as well. I hope this is just conversation one and we get to do part 2, 3, and 4 down the road. Sarah, this has been so much fun. Thank you for being so gracious with your time and spending some time with me this week. All right.
I'm in for all. Thank you so much for having me. You're amazing. And I thoroughly enjoyed every second of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you are like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Instagram at AndrewMoses123 and sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Until next time, keep pulling the tarp.